Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your hosts, Adam Emmert.
What are we going to do about emoji-shaped floor pillows, especially the poop emoji? This is out of control.
And Brandan Schultz.
Seahawks fans should not call that a Fail Mary game. We won. How is that a fail?
Go Hawks!
This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz of the Military Seahawkers. Joining me, as always, my good buddy, Adam Emmert.
Hello, Brandon. I just want to start out this podcast by saying, eat it, Atlanta.
You were so, I could just sense how happy you would be after Sunday's result. And because, there's a couple different ways to lose a Super Bowl. There's Denver fans just getting blown out in Super Bowl 48.
Super Bowl. His Super Bowl after Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, until they won.
Yeah.
And there's the way to lose Super Bowl 49. And yes, we have to bring that up in this discussion. And yes, everybody was reminded of it this weekend. So I don't think we're like totally off base by going back to this. And it's been 2 years. No. So we need to be, getting used to this feeling.
Yeah, I've got good news regarding that topic.
Okay,
so
good.
I think that's Well,
we'll get to that. And then there's the way that Atlanta lost, where they were already making plans like for the parade, getting their Super Bowl towels and all that, stuff that you get once you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Arthur Blank was already starting to try to figure out if any of his businesses that he owns that are his mob businesses were like jewelers, so he could start getting rings made up. He looks like a mob boss.
So we are going to get into that, talk a little Super Bowl. We have some big news with Kenny Easley, and then we have a couple other news topics and talk about Super Bowl odds coming up next year. And Adam might do better this week. I'm just going to say it now. My do betters for Russell Wilson, and I'm not happy about it, but he deserves it, and we're going to talk about it.
Easy, buddy. I don't know, man. That's Russell Carrington Wilson we're talking about here, because I think your do better should have been focused at another quarterback taken in that draft, who was the subject of my do better.
Okay.
So yeah, you picked the wrong one, and from a fellow Big Ten school, no less. So
okay, well, it's college Big Ten quarterbacks featured in our do better segment this week.
Exactly. Because it's the off season. We got nothing else to do.
Well, let's start off with the biggest news item of the weekend, not the Super Bowl win. Seahawks safety Kenny Easley elected into the Hall of Fame. And it was exciting to see that it finally happened. Of course, we were kind of expecting it, considering he was going in on the senior committee nomination where the voters just vote yes or no. It doesn't kind of go in with that same pool of electors for the other Pro Bowl inductees.
Correct. Yeah, he had a great shot. And part of it, too, was, isn't the senior committee full of a lot of ex-players and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I thought so. And when you think about that, Kenny Easley was a legend among fellow players.
Right.
The enforcer was maybe the toughest SOB to play football during that era.
He was talked about along with those Hall of Fame names like Ronnie Lott and Lawrence Taylor.
Listen to Ronnie Lott talk about Kenny Easley.
Right. Yeah. He thinks that Kenny Easley was better than him.
Yeah. So well-deserved, about time, overdue. Great to have another Seahawk in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it.
Your fourth member of the Seahawks in the Hall of Fame who played his entire career with the Seahawks. And we got four of those guys, sure, we have those other Hall of Famers like Jerry Rice and John Randall and Warren Moon and Franco Harris.
Warren Moon, you can almost count to a little bit of a degree. Like, just with his Washington ties and all that. Like, you can, a little bit.
Yeah, because he went to UW. He's the Seahawks' current announcer. We can claim him, right?
Yeah, but those others, not so much.
I had to notice when they were announcing at the Super Bowl the Hall of Famers from the historically black colleges, that when Jerry Rice came out, it had a Seahawks logo up, among all his other teams. And so, see, he is recognized as one of the Seahawks.
Yeah, he played here for like a game or two.
Yeah.
Had a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then, didn't he wasn't he on like the Denver Broncos roster for like a preseason?
Yeah, he didn't make their final roster. So I don't even know if they show the Broncos logo since he never made the final 53.
That's fine. The less times you have to see that, the better off you are in life.
Which means we probably won't have to see the Seahawks logo when Terrell Owens finally gets inducted.
No, definitely not. And
Although
he
still
definitely
not in.
He definitely deserves to be in. He'll get in. He'll get in.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. They may put Chad Johnson in before him.
Yeah, you think?
They might.
Yeah, well,
which is ludicrous.
If they've kept him out, if they've kept him out this long, then they might do that. You're right.
I saw an NFL top 10, from NFL Network, top receivers of the 2000s. And who would you, just take a guess real quick who your number one would be. Or just tell me who your number one would be.
Randy Moss, probably.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's Randy Moss and like everybody else is playing for second and third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number one, Marvin Harrison.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know if he might.
He's a compiler.
When I get to number 5, maybe that's where I'd put Harrison.
Sounds good to me. That totally works for me. But at number 1?
Yeah, that's surprising to me.
No way, man. I take T.O. ahead of him.
Yeah.
I take Steve Smith ahead of him.
I really like Steve Smith.
Dude, Steve Smith is a beast. There's a bunch of dudes I'd take over him. I take Chad Johnson in front of him. Yeah,
Steve Smith's got to be a borderline Hall of Famer, though.
No, he should. He needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
He needs to be. If I had to vote,
somebody's gonna get punched the catfish out if he doesn't make the Hall of Fame.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about Hall of Fame, though, I think with Kenny Easley getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think it's important to go back and a little bit later in the show, we will revisit our interview that we did with Mark Ty Turner over the offseason. We did our top 15 former Seahawks. Every fan should know these were the non-Hall of Fame Seahawks at the time. Our number one guy was Kenny Easley. And so let's go back and in our normal interview segment, you'll have our interview with Mark Ty Turner. We'll be talking about Kenny Easley because nothing's really happened between then and now. So all of the stuff we say about Kenny Easley, 6 months ago, still valid.
Yeah, and, still a badass. Yeah, like that hasn't changed.
Okay, a couple news items before we get into our Super Bowl talk. I saw last week that Richard Sherman, he knows how to make the Pro Bowl better. And what his suggestion is, pay guys what they make per game. He said that would help a lot. If you pay a guy what he makes per game, he will probably play like it's a game. A lot of these guys make a nice, decent chunk of change. That's why a lot of guys don't play. If you told them they're making a game check, I guarantee you not many guys would be passing up Pro Bowls. And this kind of makes sense because Sherman, makes almost $1 million per game. And as a Super Bowl or as the Pro Bowl loser, I think he made $30,000. So, yeah, put in the effort that you get in the paycheck in return.
Sometimes I just want him to remember that his dad gets up. I think he still does. Maybe he just retired. Gets up like every morning at 4:30 a.m. and goes and works sanitation for the city.
Right.
Like, I just want him to remember that sometimes because when he says catfish like this, man, it sounds elitist and out of touch. Oh, well, if I only get, like a few grand for going out and playing a exhibition game where I just get to go low for out and have a free trip to Hawaii, just not worth it for me to go and want to play. Oh, my gosh, man. Stop it. It doesn't sound good. The other thing is I know how to fix the Pro Bowl. Don't have it. Have the skills challenges, man. I love the skills challenges. Those? Oh, they were so much fun. I especially love the quarterback ones, man. Where they're like throwing at targets and stuff. Like, just give me a whole weekend of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm every bit as happy with it.
I don't know. It starts to feel combine-y after a while.
Yeah. Because people don't like the combine? That doesn't get high ratings?
Well, the only reason I can see to have the Pro Bowl is because it sells ads because we all sit and watch the Pro Bowl anyway, or at least part of it.
No, I did not watch one snap of the Pro Bowl.
I watched parts of it. The second half, the parts I watched of the second half, they look like they were giving more effort this year than they did last year.
Great. Yeah, I just...
Although the running plays were a joke. Because it was essentially two-hand touch on the running plays.
Oh, I'm sure it was. And it ought to be. You're not going to risk your career out there for an exhibition game. It's stupid.
Unless you do like Richard Sherman says and you start paying these guys to risk it.
Well, unless you show up and you just play for your pride. If you really care about it being a better game. Don't pretend like you care when you don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah. Rich Sherman doesn't care.
All right. Next news item. Seahawks assistant coach Rocky Seto is leaving the team to join Ministry. And I think that's the rock band of Ministry.
It must be. Wait, to join Ministry or the Ministry?
Well, the headline says to join Ministry, but I'm guessing it's join the Ministry. Although,
why does he have to quit? He can minister to people and still be on the team. He's a good coach.
Yeah, I know. Well, and he's one of these guys that have been with Pete Carroll going back to USC. I heard John Clayton describe him as the guy who's like the keeper of the defense.
You know what?
Of the Pete Carroll defense.
This is ridiculous, Brandon. It's hard enough when you have sustained success as an organization, having all the other rival teams like pick coaches off of your team every offseason, all that. The last thing we need to be doing is having to compete with God at the same time, too. God cannot be taking our coaches like this. Quit being selfish, God. Come on.
Like I said, either it's God or it's the band Ministry. And either way, I mean, seeing Seto maybe as a filling in as lead singer for Ministry. I
like how you like to enunciate Seto.
Seto. It's a fun word to say.
You had another name like that a while back too. I can't remember what it was, but it was definitely one that you really liked.
Yeah, I was listening to the Perfect Build podcast and they were saying Ajay, and I think they really like saying Jay Ajay.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was Jay Ajay.
Yeah.
So Rocky Seto betrays us for Jesus. Fine, whatever. Go, be uplifting and spread the word of something you believe wholeheartedly, and fine, whatever. Not even that mad.
Well, speaking of the Perfectville guys, I want to did you see that we're nominated for a Finzi?
A Finzi? No.
Yeah, this is
I had no idea.
They're doing some kind of awards since he and his co-host went on a bunch of different shows during the season.
Yes.
This is an award for the show that I don't know if it's the show they enjoyed going on the most or just either way we should win because, I mean, it just makes sense,
we're
right?
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And
that's awesome.
We're listed in the number 1 spot here as a nominee. So, yeah, Sam Marcoux nominated us for their thanks for stopping by, Finzi. So as soon as I find out how we can get the listeners involved to make sure that we do, in fact, win this award, I'll make sure and pass that along.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is important to me. I want a Finzi.
I do, too.
Yeah, even if it's from a Dirty Dolphins fan, it's fine. That's good. I'll still take it. No,
I think you should get it just based on your Dolphins hatred alone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. When's Sam going to have us on their show? When's that happening?
Not soon enough.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just checking. Because, I mean, he can call us up anytime.
Yeah, we have a whole off season, Sam.
Yeah, right. We can talk about a lot of things.
Next item on the news, the Browns claimed our defensive back, Tyvis Powell. He was the guy that was cut from the team when we brought on Devin Hester. And we were all a little bit bummed about that because Tyvis Powell was kind of that guy, the preseason standout player that we liked and played on special teams this year and had such a good attitude after he got cut, too. Still rooting for the team through the playoffs. It was, a bummer to see him get picked up by the Browns. But as a guy who went to Ohio State, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
might be good for him.
With him leaving the team and everything, or being let go, I really wished him like the best, and then this happened.
Yeah, now he's with the Browns.
Like, well,
he could probably start for the Browns, though.
He better.
I know.
Yeah, he knows what winning at least looks like.
Well, they need dudes with that attitude too that he has.
Yeah, and that's part of it, and that's why you see Seahawks players get picked up all over the league when they're let go. I mean, everybody knows John Schneider's like maybe the best personnel man in the business. And so there's a reason. There's a reason these guys aren't unemployed for long. That's for sure.
The Browns would have had the number 1 waiver claim on him, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this bunk picked him right up.
Oh, well, when Devin Hester makes it into the Hall of Fame, we'll get to see that Seahawks logo up by his name.
We'll see. We'll see if they put him in. I don't think they've put in a special teamer other than Ray Guy, right?
Well, Morton Anderson gets in over Terrell Owens. So, gosh, if Morton Anderson can get in as a special teamer, Devin Hester sure better be in the Hall of Fame.
You would think so. I
mean, Morton Anderson, a great kicker.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if he's in, you got to let in the best return guy ever.
Isn't Jan Stenerud in as well?
He might be the other kicker. I think there's only.
I think he is. I think it's.
Oh, and then the punter got in. Ray Guy got in on the senior committee last year, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, not many of the special teamers make it in. That's for sure.
All right. Super Bowl odds are out for next year, Adam.
Yes, they are, Brandon. And your Seattle Seahawks are tied for 5th to go back and win the Super Bowl, the big dance, Super Bowl 52 coming up. Here are the 4 teams that are ahead of you. The first 3 I can look at and be like, I get it. You're Vegas. If you're doing your thing, that's fine. Number 4, Vegas, light yourself on fire because you're stupid.
Tell me it's the Vikings.
Well, I'll get to the Vikings. The New England Patriots are favorites at 5-1. Duh.
Right. They just won.
Dallas Cowboys are tied for 2nd with the Green Bay Packers, both at 9-1. Okay. I mean, unless you watched the rest of the Packers team and not just Aaron Rodgers this postseason, I'm not sure that the Packers should be that high, but all right. Steelers are 12-1. I don't know that they know that if, they must know that Ben's going to play for sure, but I thought that was still up in the air, but whatever. And then the next team that's in front of you is the Atlanta Falcons at 14-1.
Oh.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
I'm putting $100 down on that. There's no way in hell the Atlanta Falcons win the Super Bowl next year.
No.
Do they not understand the history of what happens to Super Bowl losers? And then to lose like that on top of it? Give me a break.
Well,
and then have all those coaches picked off and players that are going to get picked off. Good luck, man. Those odds should be they should be closer to like Bills odds at 66-1.
Did you see who they hired in behind Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah. Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw a funny tweet that was listed on Bleacher Report. I wish I could remember the dude's name that put it out, but he said, well, he'll fit right in because didn't he blow a 4th quarter lead with Alabama?
Yes, he did.
So there's that.
That was his one game as offensive coordinator for Alabama.
Oh, my God.
Nick Saban fired his offensive coordinator right before, 2 weeks before the final game because the offensive coordinator got hired on as a coach elsewhere. And he was already
Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, it was Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
And he was already trying to pick out his assistant coaches and not focusing on the game. So Nick Saban fired him.
Right. So that sounds like a very Saban-y thing to do. So 14-1 Atlanta Falcons. Okay. I'm putting $100 on that. I understand the return is $7 when I win that bet. But that's the free.
It'll be $7 more than you have.
It's the freest $7 I've ever gotten. All right. And then we got all the teams tied with the Seahawks at 16-1 are the Broncos and the Raiders and also the Minnesota Vikings.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Did they not watch Sam Bradford last year or the year before that or any year that he's played in the NFL? Sam Bradford is not leading the Vikings to the Super Bowl. Stop it. Put down the meth pipe. It ain't happening. It's ridiculous.
That's surprising.
And then the few teams underneath of us at 25-1 tied at that same odd. Panthers, Colts, Chiefs, and Giants.
Who are you picking then for the Seahawks to take on in 52?
I don't think it's going to be the Patriots. It's just hard when you make late runs in the year. In fact, Bill Belichick's press conference just yesterday, the morning after the Super Bowl, he starts out, he's like, this all feels good and everything, but the reality of the NFL schedule is we're already 5 weeks behind every other team.
Man, catfish! That guy.
and there's some truth to that, man.
Yeah, but you better not be complaining. Oh, we're 5 weeks behind because we just won the Super Bowl.
He's not complaining. He's just saying the reality of the deal is that, we're already 5 weeks behind. We got to get after it.
I don't want to hear it.
No time to sleep.
Although if I'm a Patriots fan, that's exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah. From the AFC, man, AFC's kind of, I think it'll be the Raiders.
Okay.
It'll be Raiders, Seahawks.
See Carr come back and be Maybe Carl get comeback player of the year next year, even though Jimmy Graham, came back. It wasn't even nominated for a comeback player of the year award. That was just
unbelievable, man. I mean, a career threatening injury, and then come back and put up one of his best seasons. Yeah.
Two of the guys did have leading totals in the NFL, because what was Le'Veon Bell and who was the other dude that led the league in something?
But Bell came back from suspension, if I'm not mistaken,
he
right?
He had an injury too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever.
Because they didn't mention his suspension. They actually mentioned the injury. And then Cameron Wake was the other guy. But there's only 3 guys. Throw in Jimmy Graham. Have 4.
Yeah,
should at least be nominated.
Absolutely. Should definitely have been in the discussion. So you got the Hawks playing in Super Bowl 52.
I'm going to go Chiefs. Chiefs will make it back.
Of course you are. I don't even know why I asked you. I should have just said Brandan chooses the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl next year. Okay.
I'm like Chris Berman from the 1980s, where he just picked the Niners and the Bills every year.
Yep. Yeah. Late 80s, early 90s. 4 years in a row, he picked Niners, Bills.
Yeah.
And somehow that never happened.
I'm just going to pick Chiefs and Seahawks.
There you go.
Every year until it happens.
There you go. All right, man. You want to talk about the game that was Super Sunday?
Let's talk about this. And let's lead into it with an email from Brett in Sydney. It says, I know this is a Seahawks podcast, but having watched Super Bowl 51, I am simply perplexed about how Atlanta managed to lose this game. How is that a team can dominate a game for the best part of 3 quarters, hold a 28-3 lead, and end up losing? No, it's nowhere near as perplexing as Darrell Bevell's play call, which caused the Seahawks to lose Super Bowl 49. But a part of me still can't believe that the Falcons lost this game. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, I hear you, Brett. And there's a few ways that Atlanta managed to screw this up. And one is they tried to put their faith in Matty Mediocre. And he can't bring home a championship because he's a gigantic choker. Like, that's just who he's been his entire career, and that's who he'll continue to be. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is that the Falcons really weren't playing that great all the way up through that 28-point lead that they got. I mean, think about the fact that 7 of those points comes from a pick 6.
Yeah.
I'm talking about their offense, because their whole team is their offense, right?
Right. So
7 of those points come from a pick 6, and then the other 7 are set up on a very short field off of was it it was LeGarrette Blount's fumble.
Yeah, that wasn't a super short field, though, wasn't it? Didn't they have to drive? I mean, they were about midfield, weren't they?
About midfield, but a very short field.
Sure.
So, I mean, basically, New England handed them 14 points. And then you look at the time of possession just at the end of the first half. New England had dominated the time of possession. And that first quarter, they couldn't get to Brady hardly at all. In the second quarter, they really cranked it up. But, the Patriots held on to the ball for a long time through the first half. It started to wear down that defense for the Atlanta Falcons. And then once you end up in the second half, and basically the Patriots made some adjustments that the Falcons couldn't keep up with. And they started to get pressure on Matt Ryan, and the man-to-man coverage was working fine. I mean, Julio still made a couple nice catches down the stretch. I mean, it wasn't Julio.
Oh, well, he only had 4 catches in the game, and like 3 of them were amazing, incredible catches.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
Spectacular catches. And then, the Falcons fell victim to a spectacular catch in Julian Edelman's catch there, which, I mean, if you're a Patriots fan, you're like, I've seen enough of those go against me. We deserved one in a Super Bowl. So anybody says, oh, they just got lucky. Well, I Google helmet catch or curse catch or Manningham catch. Like, just do one of those. They've had their share to go against them. And Kyle Shanahan pulls boneheaded moves like he always does and decides that he's not going to run the ball in the second half and give the Patriots enough time to come back in the game. Oh, and I mentioned that they were going up against the Genghis Tom. Yeah, he's going to figure out your little vanilla defense at some point. He will, and that's how you lose.
Well, going back to the LeGarrette Blount fumble, I think that was more of a momentum shift because Atlanta was only on their 29 to start that drive, so they did have to go a good 71 yards for a touchdown there. Yeah, looking back, it seemed like it was a shorter field to me too, but still had to go 71 yards there. But yeah, that was a short drive. I mean, it was they took less than 2 minutes off the clock on that drive. The next touchdown, a minute 49. So there are 2 touchdown drives in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. It only took them 4 minutes. So like you said, time of possession was huge. The longest drive they had with the one where the short pass to Coleman for the touchdown in the third quarter, that was their longest scoring drive at 4 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, look, I just, that's the problem of having a team built around a high flying, quick strike offense, man. It really is. I mean, it's the same thing that Chip Kelly finally ran into with his little Mickey Mouse system. This is what it comes down to. I mean, and the thing is what's flabbergasting to me is they were gashing the Patriots in the run game early on.
Yeah.
They could not stop the sweep. I mean, the Falcons were just crushing them with the power sweep. I don't know how they got away from that. Doesn't make any sense to me. I guess maybe they were, too busy measuring up their ring sizes or something. I have no idea. But I think once the momentum starts to go against you a little bit, I think that's when, it starts to get a little panicky. And especially when you're going up against, probably the greatest to ever lace them up at the quarterback position. It all starts to snowball on itself.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily feel that way. And the problem I'm having with some of the talk coming out of this weekend is the idea of people calling the Falcons chokers. And I don't necessarily agree with that fact because
nobody actually passed out or something along the way. Like they managed to still breathe.
Well, because who's on the other side of the ball? Genghis Tom Brady. That's why you're up against the Genghis.
The largest comeback in Super Bowl history to that point had been 10 points.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
And you gacked up a 25-point lead. You gacked it up.
Well, not running the ball was an issue there, but I look at that drive after the Falcons or after New England got within 8, right, on that 2-point conversion attempt, they get it to 28-20, and the drive after that, the Falcons looked like they weren't going to let off the gas pedal. They had that little pass to Freeman that got him to midfield, and then that incredible catch to Julio Jones on the sideline, which I have no idea how.
That was just blind luck for Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Like that ball had no business being completed. The fact that Julio could catch it was stupendous. But the fact that ball made it through the defender's hands, go screw yourself, Matt Ryan. Nobody should get that lucky.
When that happened, I thought, oh, here it is. The Falcons just did what they needed to do to get the ball in position to kick a field goal and put this game away because they're at the New England 22-yard line. And see, this is where I think that we probably have a little bit of something in common with the Falcons, because Falcons fans, after Julio Jones caught that pass on the sideline, they were already counting 3 points on the scoreboard and being up by 2 scores. Just like we were already counting on after Curse made that catch that was already going to be a touchdown. So we already had in our minds that those points were points that have been scored, even though they haven't actually been put up on the board yet. The plays after the Jones catch on 1st and 10, they rush for -1. Okay, whatever. You could rush for -1 2 more times and still be within makeable distance for
take another minute off the clock and still be in Matt Bryant range.
Right. And then they go into shotgun and Matt Ryan just gets hit from behind and had no time at all to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And sacked for 12 yards.
Yeah.
And that right there, you're going, oh my goodness, that's huge.
And then a holding call the next.
And then a holding call on the next play, which completely takes them out of field goal range. They go from 1st and 10 at the 22 to 4th and 33 at the 45.
Yep.
Like that is the worst sequence of plays when you're already in that. Like that is the worst case scenario, other than maybe a pick 6. In that scenario, there is that's the worst case.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. That's what they get for trying to pass in those situations. That's what you get. That is what you get. The football gods smited you down for your high flying BS. Ridiculous.
Wow. And that's why I have trouble saying that it's a choke job, because there were so many, there were guys that were given, they just had those little mistakes here and there, like the holding call. I mean, you can't pin that. You can't pin a holding call on the entire team.
No, but he's a member of the team. That it starts the choke job. See, the thing is that's the worst part about this for Atlanta fan. There are so many little plays all the way down the line that you make any one or three of those, right?
Yeah.
And you win this football game. Like, that's why it's a choke job. Because they just slowly watched it just spiral out of control and never took the game by the horns. Never did. Never could just close it out. That's the quintessential definition of a choke job. Having one mistake on one play, that's just a mistake. That sort of thing happens. But to watch it slip out of your grasp for an entire half, choke job. And
that can't happen when the Genghis is on the other side of the field.
You can't do it. You give him a crack, and he's going to waltz right through, take it overtime, and grab a ring. And the best part about this is hearing the Atlanta fans start to whine about the calls now. Of course Atlanta fan whines about the calls. I'm so stunned. His knee was down. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, picture.
And that stupid picture, that's his bicep in the picture. It's not even the football.
Oh, I thought it was the football, and you can't even see the nose of the football.
Yeah, you can't see the football at all. The football's behind the other dude's arm. That's his bicep. Stop it. And then they're trying to, I saw a CBS Sports headline, and they have a little graphic of a pick play being run, down by the goal line. It's like, Patriots got away with some calls that they really shouldn't have, or something like that was the headline. Just stop it, man.
Well, that was the same play where they were offsides, so it would have been offsetting anyway. Exactly.
Yeah, of course, Atlanta fan, you're going to cry about the calls. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised there's even any Atlanta fans today. I figured they would have already voted voluntarily to move their team to Vegas. Like that fair weather fan base, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that the franchise is still in Atlanta today. I'm stunned.
When you're ahead by 25 points in the third quarter, you can't complain about two, ticky-tack little calls.
No, you can't. You really can't. And it's just it's indicative of that, of those fans. And
I think that's the problem I have with the chokers comment. It's in the media, fine, whatever, they're going to say it, but when your own fans,
you can't do that.
Oh, you should see the Falcons Reddit page. They were all over calling them chokers right after the game.
I told you they're awful fans, man. I've been saying it for weeks now. They're terrible. I mean, they're fair weather fans. They're the epitome of it. And it doesn't shock me at all that they turn on the team. Now, when we lost to the Patriots, I went to Facebook right after that, but I didn't call a bunch of chokers. I just cussed out Darrell Bevell.
Right. You and 99% of the fan base.
Sure, but I never turned on the team. You know what I mean?
Right.
I still loved my team.
Yeah.
They fought hard. I mean, you go back and listen to the podcast. Just go back and listen to the podcast after that Super Bowl. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think there's somebody from Atlanta that's been listening to the show because on Monday morning, I got a phone call. It only rang once. And it was from a number I didn't recognize. And so I looked up the area code. It's an Atlanta number.
How'd they get your number?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But they're not liking me right now. But the best part about this, Brandon, is now you can look everybody straight in the eye and say, yeah, when we lost the Patriots, that wasn't the worst loss in Super Bowl history.
No, it was not the worst loss.
It's not the worst loss.
Does it make you feel better?
It does make me feel better. Yeah. Especially when I can hang the moniker on those guys. Yeah. I feel a little better.
The only way it makes me feel better is knowing that there is a worse way to lose. Because to me, there is no worse way to lose. Had the Broncos managed to come back with Peyton Manning after Percy Harvin scored the touchdown.
I was going to say that exact same thing. Yeah.
Because what was it? 29-0 at that point? Because at 22-0 at halftime, you kind of thought, okay, there's still some room for maybe some concern about Peyton Manning leading that team back, or at least closing in on it.
Yep.
I mean, that was the dagger right there. That was the kind of that point that you knew that, and really, when the Falcons scored to put it up 28-3, that's when the Falcons fans knew that they were. I think that's when they were all counting on winning that game.
I think the ESPN odds or something like that at that point were something like 92% that the Falcons would win that game at that point, and then choked it away.
Yeah. Well, I heard that up 25 in the third quarter, no team had ever come back from that kind of deficit, like ever.
Really?
Yeah.
In the history of football?
Yeah. At least in the recent history.
Oh, okay.
In the Super Bowl era.
Gotcha. Huh. Well, I guess
don't quote me on that, but it's very rare.
It sounds like it's very rare. Now, quick question for you, Brandon. I've heard this floated out there a million times since the game that this was the greatest Super Bowl in Super Bowl history. What say you?
No, and that's the unfortunate point of this game, because now as a Seahawks fan, anytime that somebody
Super Bowl 48 is the greatest Super Bowl.
Well, yes, right.
But if I'm going to put that aside,
if I'm going to put that aside, let's just take this as an objective football fan. This was a terrible football game because I was for the whole first quarter, you had no score at all. And then after the second quarter, after halftime, I was rooting for the Patriots to score, because I'm like, this game cannot go on like this. This is incredibly, this is terrible. The Patriots need to score to at least make this somewhat interesting. Right. And then it started, then it became interesting. And finally I was starting to get into it a little bit, but then, having the Patriots win wasn't all that great to me. If you look at it as an objective football fans, people are still going to say and point to Super Bowl 49 as probably being the best Super Bowl ever. And that's a little bit of a bummer to me. So maybe as a Seahawks fan, I point to this Super Bowl and say, no, that was such a great comeback. That was the greatest Super Bowl ever, just to get people's mind off of 49.
Recency bias is unbelievable to me, because there's so many other Super Bowls that I would throw up over top of either of those games. And basically, to me, like my first Super Bowl memory is Joe Montana leading the Niners back and beating
against the Bengals.
Bengals, and pointing to John Candy in the stands and all that nonsense, right? Like, that was a way better game. Rams Titans was a way better game. Rams Patriots, way better game. Packers Broncos, way better game. Those are just a few off the top of my head that I think of right now that were far better Super Bowls than this last one. And on top of that, 49 is definitely a better game. It was back and forth and the drama and all that. It was a better game.
So I did put that question out on the Facebook page of whether or not it actually made Seahawks fans feel better watching that loss. And I think the consensus was, no, it didn't make them necessarily feel any better because that's our loss. Like Dan Pate says, nope, still feel the same. I have to admit that Tom Brady just cemented his legacy as the greatest of all time. And I got that sense from Marshawn Lynch's tweet after the game as well.
So what did you get out of that Marshawn tweet? What did you get out of that? I have no effing clue what that means.
If you're someone who believes in fate or destiny, that maybe it was Tom Brady's destiny to go out, with his, especially the story, with his mom fighting cancer, and for him to end up being, the quarterback with the most titles of all time, having 5 rings. It just cements his legacy, just like Dan said. And to do it in that way, the 25-point comeback victory. I mean, if the Seahawks get the win 2 years ago, I think with a win like that by Tom Brady, it still cements his legacy and Bill Belichick's legacy. But I just think that if you're someone that looks at it in terms of fate or destiny, that's how you're viewing it.
Okay, I can feel you that way. Yeah, I just like the way that the Falcons loss just puts ours in a little lesser context, in the sense that, again, it's not the worst one ever. Like, you could have gacked that up even worse, So yeah, it does make me feel a little bit better. It really does. And now it takes the conversation away from 49. You're just going to have to hear about it less. Man, this is going to be great.
Just know that you're still going to hear about it, but you're going to hear about it a little bit less.
Yes, exactly.
And one other thing that I think Seahawks fans are going to be happy with knowing, it's the fact that the Seahawks were the only team to beat Tom Brady this year.
Yeah, we were the only team to beat both of those teams this year.
That's true.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But see, Matt Ryan did lose to other teams. Tom Brady didn't lose to any other team.
That's true. And we beat him in Gillette. Yeah. See what happens when your roster's healthy?
If we were the Colts, we would hang a de facto champs banner up in the Clink next year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We're not the Colts, though.
No, we've got like pride and standards.
All right, Adam, what do you say we get into our look back, our interview with Mark Ty Turner from this past summer as we recognize Kenny Easley. Now, back then, he wasn't a Hall of Famer. Now he is.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawkers podcast, top 15 former Seahawks every fan should know. Number 1, safety Kenny Easley. And joining us to talk about it, we got to bring back the author of Notes from a 12th Man, a truly biased history of the Seattle Seahawks. You have all the accounts of some of the biggest games Kenny Easley played in and know exactly what type of player he was.
Yeah, and count me as one of the guys that totally thinks Kenny Easley needs to be in the Hall of Fame. It's really sad and kind of inexplicable that he's not. And I think maybe because he played in Seattle and his career ended early, that's why. But ask none other than Ronnie Lott, who is always pushed as Kenny Easley says, because Ronnie and Kenny are around the same period, and Ronnie Lott is considered like maybe the best safety in the 80s. And Kenny Easley, he always said Kenny Easley was on his level. I don't know how or why Kenny Easley, other than the fact that he didn't play long enough and he played in Seattle. That's the only reasons I can see why Kenny Easley is not in the Hall of Fame, and he should be.
Yeah, Ronnie Lott brought it up here recently when talking about Cam Chancellor, actually, and kind of getting Ronnie Lott's opinion to Chancellor, said Cam Chancellor right now is as good as any safety that's played the game of football. He said, it's hard for me to say this, but there was only one guy that I know that's better. And that's Kenny Easley. He was Defensive Player of the Year and best player to play the safety position ever. He's getting close to being in the community of greatness, he said about Cam. And that's hard for him to say because he just had the utmost respect for Easley. And so he's comparing these two guys. And then the reporter brought up the fact that Ronnie Lott was pretty good at the position, too. And then Lott said, I would tell you I look up to Kenny. When I look at Kenny, and I look at myself, the only thing that separates us is that Kenny didn't get a chance to do it as long. That's the only thing.
Yeah. And it's a good, I've always compared Cam with Easley as well, too. Not only that they're hard hitting safeties, but they're also from the same state. They're both from Virginia. Mm. So it's kind of, maybe Virginia just gives us really hard hitting safeties for the Seahawks. That's how it's produced there.
Well, and they kind of both carry that same moniker, right? He was the enforcer, and you see Cam kind of starting to adopt that name for himself too. You go on Twitter, and his name has the enforcer. So
yeah. Well, and Kenny Easley always said, like, he goes, I'm vicious. I mean, he would say that in interviews, like, I'm vicious. He's not out to hurt people, but he wants the offensive players, the receivers or whoever he's hitting, he wants them to feel it. And he did. And of course, the rules were a lot different back then. So some of the stuff he did back in the 80s would probably be flagged today, no question. But I tell you, a lot of wide receivers would not go across the middle when Kenny was there.
Well, and so that's, we have the Legion of Boom now. Now, how did Kenny Easley and the players in that secondary at the time when he was playing, how do you compare those two squads?
Oh, I mean, we had a great defensive, a great backfield back then too. I mean, we had Kenny and we had Dave Brown. I mean, it was a great group of players, and I really loved those guys back then. And they were like, I mean, like in '84 was like such an amazing team there. I mean, we had John Harris and Keith Simpson were the other players in the backfield. They didn't get the press of the Legion of Boom. They didn't have a nickname like the Legion of Boom. It was a different era as well. But that was a great defensive group back then. And one game in particular, and we could talk more about it because the 84 season is really the defining season in Kenny Easley's career. I mean, the guy had a great career here. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-team All-Pro, but 84 was the year he won the NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
He was double-digit in interceptions that year with 10. Yeah,
he led the league in interceptions, which is hard, not really easy for safeties to do necessarily.
Right.
Not a lot of, so that especially that period, that was considered really unusual. And not a lot of safeties become Defensive Player of the Year either. So that was
not a lot of safeties make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate too. But there's one game in particular in the 84 season that really kind of stands out. Well, there's a few, I should say. I mean, there's a couple. One was at this Monday Night Football game where we played the Chargers and we shut out the Chargers down in San Diego. And Kenny had 3 interceptions in that game. And he basically just took control of the whole game and just broke the will of Dan Fouts and the Chargers. It was just an amazing game. But then later in the year, we played the Chiefs up in the Kingdom.
Yeah, we actually talked about this game in our episode on Dave Brown, because Brown had 2 interceptions in this game, but Easley had one of his own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the team overall had 4 interceptions returned for touchdowns.
Yep, NFL record.
Yeah, and that's an NFL record to this day. I mean, it's funny that at the time we thought this is a big deal, but we didn't think about it in terms of
you don't think a record like that is going to stick around for 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, you just because you didn't really. I had no frame of reference before that. I think the record before that was 2 or 3 years. It might have been 3 or something like that, which was years before. And I'm like, oh, this is great. We're going to have it. I didn't think that 30 years later that nobody would even have, no team has even tied that record.
Right.
It's one of those NFL records the Seahawks have. They don't have a lot of these super big records there like that, but, or game records like that, but that's one of them. And it was such an amazing game. It was goofy. It was almost like, the way they were just beating up on the Chiefs all day long. I mean, 45-0 was the final. It was a lot of fun. I just love that game.
Well, it was a stretch of games, too, where you mentioned the San Diego game where he had the 3 picks off Dan Fouts, and then the next game was that 4 interception game against the Chiefs. And then the very next week against the Raiders, he had 2 more.
Yeah. And we went on a stretch there where we only gave up a 4-game stretch where we gave up 2 touchdowns in 4 games.
Yeah, 20 points over those 4 games.
And that was we had 3 shutouts that season. And as we know these days, how rare shutouts are.
Oh yeah.
If you get 1 in a season, that's a big deal. To get 3, it was huge. So, that was such a fun team to watch. And we were they set a record for most turnovers that season. And, it was a lot of fun to watch. And that was the season that Kurt Warner went down in the first game. So we went to more of an Air Knox it went from ground chuck to Air Knox that season. And Dave Craig had his best, passing season that year.
Now, what happened toward the end of that season, Mark? Because, you talk about how dominant the defense was, but then toward the end of the year, they give up, over 30 points to Kansas City on the road. Then they lose to Denver, where Denver scores more than 30 points in the Kingdome. Were they just coasting at that point into the playoffs? Because they seemed to get it back against the Raiders that first game. We talked about how Jacob Green had such a dominant performance in that 84 game against the Raiders, but then go on to lose in Miami. In the a year after winning in Miami when they were supposed to lose.
Yeah. It was a little payback there for the Dolphins that year. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, we're getting blown out by the Chiefs. I mean, Arrowhead Stadium has always been a nightmare for us. I mean, the Chiefs could be a horrible team, and they were an average team that year. I think they finished 8-8 or something like that. But we got blown out we lost there like we always do in Arrowhead. And then that game, I much more remember that game against the Broncos because that was a Saturday afternoon game, and that was both teams came in with 12-3 records, and it was for the AFC Western Division Championship. Mm-hmm. And we had never won the division at that point. So it was probably the biggest game in team history because it was a chance to win the division at home in front of our own folks at the Kingdom. And it was just Elway's best performance ever in Seattle. and it just was crushing. It was horrible.
Sorry to bring up the bad memories.
Yeah, that game is a bad memory for me. It's just, and it was Elway too, and Elway's just he's the thorn in the Seahawks side in some ways too, because the fact is, here's a guy who is a Washingtonian. I mean, he was born in the state, grew up in California, but he still is a Washingtonian, and I don't think anybody has more passing yards and more passing touchdowns against the Seahawks than John Elway. But normally we had the better of him in Seattle, but that was one game where we didn't. And it cost us the division championship.
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about with Easley and bring up is that he kind of, in a way, he was the original real Mike Robb. Michael Robinson taking us fans behind the scenes, showing us the videos, and Easley did this too. Mina Kimes wrote a story in, she's ESPN senior writer, Mina Kimes. She's a Seahawks fan, and she did a story talking about how Kenny Easley started up his own newspaper called Inside the Seahawks. Fans might remember Norm Evans. He did a newsletter called The Seahawk Report. And when Mina talks about how when Norm interviewed Kenny Easley, he thought that was kind of a good idea and decided to start up this Inside the Seahawks, and over a number of years continued to put it out, kind of giving people some of that perspective from inside the locker room that maybe you wouldn't otherwise get.
Yeah, kind of a thing that is almost kind of quaint these days, the term newsletter.
Right?
Everything's a blogs now.
Well, it's so much easier now that you can just, if you want to show people things, you just turn on your phone and you can have video up on the web in no time at all. It actually took some effort back in the day. Oh yeah, it was
no social media, no internet, nothing like that. I mean, it's very quaint in some ways there.
Well, we talked about how great Easley was in 1984, a big year for the Seahawks defense. He was selected again to go to the Pro Bowl in 1985. Then he got injured in 86. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the start of maybe the downturn of his career.
Yeah. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, I remember in 86 when he got hurt, and we had kind of gone on this little bit of a slide. I think it was like he played it till 10 games. And then he got hurt, and we're thinking, okay, well, there's the season. But then we ended up having a great run at the end of the year there, winning our last 5 in a row. We were 5-6, and we ended up going 10-6, but without Easley, which was kind of surprising to me. But yeah, it was. I don't know if he ever got completely healthy after that. He had a decent year in 87. He went back. He made the Pro Bowl again. He definitely was not as good as he was before he got injured. That's for sure.
It's interesting that him being the player rep at the time, and then not too long after being shipped off for the first round pick, Kelly Stouffer.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they thought that, Easley was never going to be quite the player here, and that they really wanted to look for a quarterback in the future. It always seemed like they were doing that. Poor Dave Craig had to deal with this the whole time. As well as he played, they always were kind of looking for somebody else in there. Be it, Warren Moon back in 84, which they didn't get. And then but then they had Gail Gilbert out of Cal. Oh. Yeah, Craig got, in 86, Craig got benched for a while, and they brought in Gail Gilbert to play for him there, and then they went back to Craig. So it always seemed like they were trying to find somebody else to replace Craig, and that was the Kelly Stouffer issue there. And then that was, of course, was a disaster.
That'd be a good podcast name, the Kelly Stouffer issue. It just has a ring to it,
Yeah, so I don't know if that had much to do with it, or if they just thought he had enough time there. It's hard to say, but that trade to the Cardinals turned out to save Kenny Easley's life, because he gets traded to the Cardinals for their number 1 pick. He takes his physical down there. He fails it, and they go and they discover that he has some serious kidney issues. And so he had to immediately retire. And it turned out later it was the effect of taking a lot of ibuprofen, and that the team doctors gave him, and there was a lot of friction, and it caused actually Kenny Easley to kind of distance himself from the Seahawks for like 15 years.
Well, there was a lawsuit at the time because, the doctor said that they didn't tell him to take that much ibuprofen, and Easley said that they did. So it was kind of a contentious case. And like you said, They kind of cut his ties with the Seahawks for a while until kind of in recent years, it seems like, and kind of his Ring of Honor induction, it helped kind of mend those relationships.
Yeah. And what I've heard is from a lot of people is this one woman who's been working for the Seahawks forever, Sandy Gregory, was a very key person that she knew Kenny, and she was able to kind of bring him back into the Seahawk family. So that was very cool that she was able to do that there. And I've not spoken to Kenny about this, but I've spoken to Kenny's wife at the time, and she credited Sandy Gregory as the one that brought Kenny back into the Seahawk family. So I'm glad he's back in there. I'm glad he got to go and get inducted into the Ring of Honor, and also he's been able to wave the 12th man flag and be a little bit more part of the team. It's great. I'm glad. A lot of that is Paul Allen too, wanting to bring back the old players and keep it as this, it's the family, but it's also known as the Seahawk alumni, where they promote all of their former players' charities and everything like that. I think it's a great thing. And I'm glad that Kenny's back into it, because it was always just kind of a sour taste when he didn't want to have anything to do with the Seahawks and was suing them and everything like that. It just was, it's not, it's a reality, but it's not one that we want. And especially of a great player like Kenny Easley.
Well, especially when, so many fans have such great memories about a guy like Easley and what he meant to the Seahawks at the time. I mean, 32 interceptions in his 7-year career, 538 yards off those, 3 touchdowns. And Dave Brown had the 5 touchdown returns. But just part of that defense, like you talked about, especially in 1984. I mean, heck, Easley was even a punt returner. And Adam cringes about how Earl Thomas was allowed to return punts. I can't even imagine what he would have been like if Easley had been returning punts.
Catatonic. I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story of what happened is that back in 84, our regular punt returner, Paul Johns, who was a great punt returner for us there, in this game against the Bears, he got hurt, and it ended up being his last game he ever played with us. And he's sadly another player that his career ended way too early. But when he went down, Kenny Easley went to Chuck Knox and said, "Hey, I'll go return punts." And Chuck had said that was the first time in his whole NFL career that a starter had ever come to him and said, I'll return punts. He had never seen that before, that somebody volunteered. Mind you, this is the guy that year was the NFL Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He's offering, and as we know, it's a headhunter position, is your fair game on players there. And so he went and did it. That was really impressive. He didn't do that many punt returns that season. I mean, they ended up getting somebody else later on because they were going, we don't want to risk him too much on that. But the fact that he even volunteered and did it for a few games was pretty impressive. So I have lots of respect for Kenny for doing that. I mean, that's a guy that really, put the team above himself. And that's what you always appreciate with players doing that. So that's a great story with Kenny.
Well, and a great player to end on number 1 of our list of top 15 former Seahawks every fan should know. Kenny Easley, a 3-time All-Pro, 83, 84, and 85. Went to the Pro Bowl in 5 seasons. Only missed that 1986 season. And one more thing before we wrap up on Kenny Easley, Adam. I got an email here from Gary from Chappaqua, New York. Says, I just remember having the Enforcer poster on my bedroom wall with the Easley Street sign on it. As much as Dave Brown might be the original Hawk and the grandfather of the Legion of Boom, I never really got to watch him play much. Kenny would have fit in so well with this group. He was a tone setter on defense. I rock my Easley jersey regularly these days and have to introduce people in New York to what I consider the original Legion of Boom member.
No, it's kind of a generational thing, right? The poster.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I've seen one kid with the poster. Like I haven't seen one kid looking through the poster rack or like going to the counter to buy a poster, whether it's bands or football or whatever. You know what I mean?
It doesn't. It definitely doesn't seem to be
as
popular as it was when we were kids, right?
Yeah, man, that was a thing back in the day. Like I'm looking at the Largent Blue Angel poster right now here in the podcast.
Yeah, and it feels right.
It does feel right, and yeah, it was such a phenomenon, and it was always the great players, right, that had their own poster, and it was usually pretty. They were usually pretty dope. So I appreciate Gary bringing that up, and to kind of also tie it into today's Seahawks crew and how he would have fit.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Thanks again to Mark Ty Turner for all the help that he gave us this last summer with the top 15 former Seahawks every fan should know. And it's cool looking back that, we recognized Easley as number one, and now, just over 6-7 months later, he's actually getting into the Hall of Fame. I couldn't be happier.
You bet, man. Like I said, overdue. And yeah, big thanks to Mark. Appreciate his help with that whole series for sure.
Getting into this, Adam, we have now that we finished off the season, we have our Seahawkers Podcast Pick'em League champion crowned, our Patron League champion crowned. Let's talk about who this is because, we just talked about Kenny Easley getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, and you have Gary Bloom, who picked Easley Street as his Pick'em League name.
Yep.
And he wins the title Easley Street with 2,350 points. He is your champion of the and he since he was also in our Patron League, he has taken home the Steve Largent jersey.
Just a nice slow clap for Gary there. Look, apparently all you have to do is pick a serendipitous name at the beginning of the season, and you're guaranteed to win because, it all came together. Marshawn Lynch would probably send out a tweet, talking about the fate of it,
Yeah, exactly. If you believe in fate, then that's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it was Kenny Easley getting into the Hall of Fame because Easley, Gary selected the Easley Street name, or whether Easley Street won the Pick'em League title because Kenny Easley got into the Hall of Fame, it's a very chicken and egg argument for me.
Yeah, hard telling not knowing, man. I mean, that sounds like one of those Inception things or something. I don't know.
But yes, congrats to Gary. And then we ended up with a tie, Adam, between the Drop Bears and Lieutenant Nacho Cheese. They had 2,320 points apiece. And because I felt it coming, I felt this tie coming because they were tied after the championship round.
Yeah.
And so I asked them to both submit the combined final score of the Super Bowl as the tiebreaker.
Good.
And we needed it because they both picked the Falcons. But David Van Cleve, he wins the tiebreaker. He picked 62 points, and with the overtime score, it was exactly 62 points.
Wow. Well earned. Well earned by David. Well done. You guys fought hard all year. I'm very impressed with all of you in the Pick'em League this year. I'm still upset about the Drop Bears name because I still find myself looking up into the trees, slightly terrified here and there.
It's only in Australia you have to worry about those.
You don't think they can migrate? They can climb trees, jump out of trees, and devour men. They can migrate. They can build a canoe or something and be over here in a week.
Yeah, they're pretty vicious, so I could see that happening.
Yeah, they're like pythons, You don't know. Somebody tries to bring a little friendly baby drop bear over as a pet, as something back from Australia,
and he feeds it chicken after midnight, and
exactly. Right. Next thing you know, there's little carnivorous bears dropping out of trees.
Yeah, exactly. That is terrifying. But Andrew, a bummer. A solid showing.
Yes,
but falls out with third place, and tough loss, but incredible season. Thanks to everybody who participated, whether it was in the Seahawkers Podcast League or the Patron League. And David, I'll be making sure I get the KJ Wright autograph football in the mail to you. Congratulations on the win.
Very much congratulations on the win. What a great year for the Pick'em League. Most participants we've ever had, because we've done it a whole 2 years, so I guess one had to be better. But, looking forward to next year. Can't wait to have all you guys sign up again. Can't wait to figure out what we're going to do for prizes again this next year.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. So thanks for participating and making it as great as it was. You guys rock.
Well, Adam, let's get into some reviews. And I got a couple emails before we get to do better and better at life. First review from Dark Stalker says 12s rage on. Now this show has it all. The good, the bad, and the 12s. Keep up the good work and go Hawks.
I like the phrase, the good, the bad, the 12s. That might be something we need to adopt. I like
That's true.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a great review.
One from J-Bo's Garden. And she is one of our members of the flock. And actually, she references it in the review here. It says, week-changing podcast. As a member of the flock, I need to do better. Sorry I didn't review sooner, guys. Anyway, yes, look forward to listening to Brandan and Adam each week and have been known to check my phone in the middle of the night to see if there's a new edition out. Some games, win or lose, you just need to hear someone else's thoughts, and these guys are the best. Informative, funny, smart. They even make the offseason bearable. If you love the Hawks, you need to subscribe.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for the kind words. It's nice to know that there's at least one woman out there that thinks of me in the middle of the night somewhere. That's nice, because God knows it's probably nobody else. So like there's that little solace I get out of that. But no, I appreciate it. And the idea that, you look forward to it so much that it's a week changing kind of thing for you. That's awesome. It's awesome.
And we got a 4-star review from Fatty Acid 23. Says, I've been listening for about 2 months. And to be honest, I'm still not sure what to think about this podcast, but I listen on. Okay. Not sure what to think about Brandan either, but I listen on.
Oh, no.
They know their stuff pretty well, but sometimes Brandan says the absolute dumbest thing that just makes me yell at my phone. For example, when he said Jeremy Lane was not a liability. Absolutely, he was a liability. Not only did he get beat constantly, but his temper was a huge liability. His tackling was a huge liability, but I listen on. Overall, I'm looking forward to the next podcast, and if I ever figure you guys out, I'll be sure to let you know. Oh, and go Hawks!
Well, let me help you out here. What was the handle name?
Fatty Acid 23.
Fatty Acid 23. Let me help you out here a little bit. Well, first off, listening to that, I think you have Brandan confused for me. I'm Adam. Hello. I'm the one that you think says dumb stuff sometimes, because the Jeremy Lane thing, that was indeed me.
Because I can say dumb things too.
Yeah, I went back and listened. So
you went back and checked. This is a 4-star review. This is actually a positive review, Adam, and you went back to check.
Yeah, it was a great review. It was a great review because, number one, he has an opinion on it. Well, kind of. He hasn't quite settled on what we are yet, but we're going to help him out with that. He's gonna feel more solid about how he feels about the pod after this. But so I thought, well, he actually came at us with something like, this is something I disagree with you on, which is great. I like that. If you have more stuff like that, man, don't yell at your phone. It's not your phone's
Send us an email.
fault. Like, it's me. Shoot us an email, dude. We'll address it. No worries.
Anytime you feel like yelling at your phone, do it with your thumbs.
Yeah, do it with your thumbs. And then the thing with the Jeremy Lane thing, like, look, the thing is that we both agree that he didn't have his best season. He didn't play well. We just disagree on what liability is. Like, he wasn't George Fant is a liability. Like, he's going to get your franchise quarterback killed. Like, Jeremy Lane can still play. He just didn't tackle well. Now, as far as his temper being a liability, maybe he has him confused with Sherman, kind of like he had you confused with me. I mean, I don't know. But that's the thing, man. We actually agree. That's the twisted thing about all this, man. Jeremy Lane didn't play well last year. I'm just taking a little longer view because his previous 3 seasons, he played average to above average cornerback for this team. And this year had a down year. And like I said, when we talked about Jeremy Lane earlier, if you looked at Bobby Wagner the previous year, he had his worst year as a Seahawk and then came back this year and had his best year as a Seahawk. So looking long term, Jeremy Lane isn't a liability. Just one year is a blip compared to the other 3 to me. And if you don't take my word for it that he played well before, go look it up on Pro Football Focus. Go look at his ratings. You'll see it. You'll see it clear as day. So the thing is we actually agree. We just don't agree on what a liability is. That's all.
Well, and I have a hard time with the huge liability. 710 ESPN Seattle's John Clayton. He actually broke out their completions and attempts to Lane and Deshaun Shedd. And this is an interesting comparison because we really liked what Deshaun Shedd did this year opposite Richard Sherman, especially after Kerry Williams the previous year. Lane thrown out fewer times, only 55 attempts going Jeremy Lane's way. 35 of those were completed. So 20 incompletions, that's 64%. 481 yards, 3 touchdowns is what Jeremy Lane gave up. Deshaun Shedd, 86 attempts went his direction. 52 of those were completed, so 60%. So it was better percentage-wise.
But not demonstratively.
Right, 64 to 60%.
Yeah.
And then you had 692 yards. It was more because he got thrown out more. And 2 touchdowns, so 1 fewer touchdown. But still, 2 or 3 touchdowns to your corners that aren't named Richard Sherman. I mean,
Right.
5 touchdowns between the two of them.
Exactly. So, yeah, at the end of the day, sure, he can be better. And I think he will play better next year. Maybe the money went to his head or who knows what it was. But the good news is, man, is that I appreciate that you listen on. I like his endurance, to like keep testing this out. And he must not be that confused. I mean, it was 4 stars.
And if you haven't figured this out after 2 months, just listen 2 more months.
Right. And then, and then reevaluate after that and probably just, hit subscribe. Like you're going to be doing all right.
One email here from Garrett in Northern Ontario says, "Hey guys, firstly, those 1-star ratings are from Arizona or San Fran. I'm sure of it. Probably Atlanta, though. Judging after Adam's latest comments, I think it's from Atlanta. Anyhow,
maybe
caught up on a couple shows today before the new one dropped. After the Atlanta loss, for lack of better words, I became really depressed. I've always fought depression, and the loss kicked it into overdrive, sleeping all day, lack of appetite, and sleep loss at night. Today, I decided to listen to the shows I missed out on and realize that because the season is over, doesn't mean the show is or my Hawk love. The show shined light on a dark time in my life. Listening to your guys' show brought a smile to my face and heart. After the shows today, I'm really looking forward to listening all off season. Thanks, Brandon and Adam. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks, Garrett. And I think we both shot him a little message too, and like, I'm just stoked that the show made somebody's day a little better, when you weren't feeling great. That's what we're here for, man. We're here for fun, and sometimes it rubs some people the wrong way, those people from Atlanta. But, for the most part, we try to have fun with it and keep your spirits up, man. It's looking up.
One more email here before we get into our Do Better and Better at Life. Here's one from Dan Weinholtz, who donated the Buck Knives. And that one of those is going to be going out to the Picks and IPAs winner. So we'll be announcing that hopefully soon. Dan says, I just listened to the show today. Great podcast. I have a comment and question. First off, Pete Carroll said in his press conference that some people stepped out of line and needed to be reprimanded. I know who he was referring to. The game we lost where Michael in San Diego admitted to skipping breakfast. Come on, man. Take one for the team. And 2, the game we lost when Adam forgot his lucky hat. Come on, Adam, do better.
It's on me. I will.
And 3 for my attempt at the reverse jinx before the game we lost against the Packers. I told my wife before the game we are going to lose by 20 and Russell Wilson will throw 4 picks. That blew up in my face.
Oh, man.
At least I was wrong about the picks. I believe he threw 5. I accept whatever punishment deems fit. Now for the question. My buddy and I were talking about the Seahawks. He said Earl has so much range that the other guys have a smaller area to defend. They never adjusted the scheme to make the rest of the secondary expand their coverage to make up for the lack of one Earl Thomas. That is why the sudden pass defense decline. It's not all on Terrell. Do you see any truth to this, or was my buddy just trying to sound smart? Go Hawks. From Daniel.
Catfish!
The Rams.
Of course. Well, not only was your buddy trying to sound smart, but he is pretty smart. I mean, that's definitely part of it. The Seahawks, they definitely do what they do, right? How many times have we heard that over the course of the Pete Carroll era? Like, we're going to line up, we're going to hit you in the mouth and try to beat us. Like, we're not going to do anything fancy. It's going to be single high safety, cover 1 stuff, maybe some cover 3. But basically, they try to just plug in Steven Terrell and hope that his 85% impersonation of Earl Thomas would be enough. And it turns out it wasn't. I mean, maybe they could have adjusted more and gone to some 2 safety looks.
They did a little, but not a
cover 2
not
and
a
things
ton.
like that.
I mean, they do that a little bit anyway.
Right.
And sometimes you see Cam going back to be the single high safety.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure there maybe are some things, but look, it's just when you have your entire defensive backfield and the scheme designed around that one guy and he goes away, it's just going to suffer. It really is. And I think that points a little bit to the way that Lane and Shed and those guys played down the stretch as well.
Right.
It didn't help not having Earl around. No doubt about
and
it.
the other part too, Terrell has a part of what Earl does, and he has the speed to be able to cover a lot of ground, but he does not have the instincts and those things that you just can't teach to a football player, and the knowledge of the game that Earl Thomas has. So he's not going to be as good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, he's just, there's how many Earl Thomases are there out there?
We got him.
Yeah, we got him. Thank goodness. Heal up, Earl.
All right. On to do better and better at life, Adam. We got a couple Big Ten quarterbacks here in our do better.
Yeah. My do better this week is for none other than Mr. Franchise Tag himself, Captain Kirk Cousins. He was playing in a charity flag football game this weekend. It was the let me look it up here. I've got the exact name of it because it was kind of funny. It was one that Doug Flutie put on, actually. He's playing in the charity game, and basically everybody's there volunteering and everything, for that, including the referees. Well, as Cousins was trying him out to come back late in the game, he got irate with one of the officials for not being able to spot the ball fast enough. And he runs up to him. There's video of this. Look it up. He runs up to the official and it's like screams, "Come on!" in his face and shoves him like hard.
What?
Like gives him not just like a push, but pops him dead in the chest. The ref goes stumbling backwards, like good 4 or 5 steps and like raises his finger, like give him like the, you better not be doing that. And by all accounts, everybody who was at that game and all the witnesses and stuff said that he wasn't playing around. Like Kirk Cousins was legitimately pissed at the volunteer referee at the charity flag football game and put his hands on him. Unbelievable, man. Kirk Cousins, you're a catfish balloon. Do better.
Man, Kirk Cousins is like the dude at the Little League game that wants to fight the high school umpire that's just, out there to make a couple bucks.
Gosh, man. Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a high five party. That's for sure. Like this was he was in a totally different mind space. There's no doubt about it. And it's just, if you can't do that to NFL referees, what makes you think you can do it at a charity game? And like, why is it so important that the ball gets spotted? Like you win or lose, it's a charity game.
Yeah, it's just for fun.
I don't know, man. Yeah, he's a jerk.
Now, Washington needs to, they just need to cut ties with Kirk Cousins, move on.
I wouldn't a heartbeat anyways. That's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like, why tie your franchise to a guy that's going to take you to be 9-7 every year?
Right.
I don't understand that for the life of me. It's the worst possible decision you can make as a franchise.
If you're that fragile mentally that you're going to fight a ref at a charity event, then that's not going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
No, it's going to be a problem.
Well, my do better this week is for a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I had to go and check out Russell Wilson's Facebook Live video this week because, Adam, after I saw the headline that made it sound like Russell Wilson was personally considering assassinating the president, I had to go and actually watch the Facebook Live video to see what he said because I think he was just talking impeachment. I got the sense from the video that he was talking impeachment, but there's only 2 ways to not make it 4 years. So if you're going to sensationalize, I can understand why you would go that way to get the clicks. But my do better for Russell Wilson isn't for any of his political talk, because in that same video, Russell Wilson talking about opening up a restaurant in Seattle.
Oh no,
a restaurant in Seattle.
Oh, God, just watch the 30 for 30 broke, man. You know what you should do? It's snowing in Seattle right now, right, Brandon? It's cold there. Yeah, just take all of those millions of dollars, Russell, pile them up in the front yard and light a fire and just keep warm.
It'll at least melt the snow.
It'll at least melt the snow. You give you something pretty to look at, a nice bonfire. You and Sierra can have a nice time. That's a better use of your money.
For me, it's not just the money aspect. It's a terrible idea all around because, Russell, dude, you're trying to bring another championship to Seattle. You're trying to bring a basketball team to Seattle. You have a clothing line. You have the weekly trips to the children's hospital. You're a stepdad already. You're about to have another kid. Just from my perspective here, your plate is kind of full already. Be like Sidney Rice. Wait until your career's over before you start going crazy and opening restaurants, and do better.
Do better, man. Well, maybe that he'll be able to go ahead and hire some good people to kind of do the whole thing for him, and so won't have to invest much time into it.
Well, I guess with the clothing line, that's probably set up that way too. And
Yeah, I don't see Russell Wilson like sewing together his jackets and stuff.
You don't think he's personally going and getting on the sewing machine?
No, I don't think that's it. Yeah,
he's pretty talented though. I bet he can use the sewing machine.
He might be able to. I don't know.
And bringing the basketball team to Seattle, that seems like the thing that he's really involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would cement his legacy as an all-timer for sure.
All right. Well, on to Better at Life. My Better at Life, Adam, is for Russell Carrington Wilson.
All right. Well, I like how you brought it around.
I had to bring it around. I can't just leave him hanging out there with a do better. And especially after I saw him on Twitter, Adam, tweeting out already, looking forward to Super Bowl 52. He just on the 6th, he tweeted out saying, I'm coming for you, 52. And he puts the date 2/14/18. So already looking forward to next year. Got a picture of him holding up the one Lombardi. He's already he beat you to the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl train this year, Adam. Russell Wilson was out front. He's conducting this train.
My man who is the conductor of positive thinking. Like, yeah, I mean, of course he was out there before me. I mean, that's our quarterback, man. I'm on board. I'm on board with the message early, obviously.
And for that, Russell Wilson, Better at Life than Skip Bayless.
I like it. My Better at Life than Skip Bayless this week, Brandon, is for the officials in the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you why. Because they did an amazing job throughout that Super Bowl. Think of a few different plays. Number one, the Edelman catch, right?
Holy smokes.
Like, I don't know how you tell that in real live time, but you'll see, like, watch the replay. Dude comes from, like, the line judge comes, like, way over from opposite side of the field, comes running over and demonstratively, that was a catch, that was a catch. They rule it a catch. They go back and they look at it, and lo and behold, what was it?
It was a catch.
Yeah. And then let's just take the goal line play, the last play of the game. Same guy on the goal line. James White gets there. He clearly gets the ball across before his knee goes down. Signals it a touchdown, and upon further review, holds up. Can you imagine if he had gotten that call wrong and everybody had charged out on the field like that, and they would have had to try to clean up that mess and then go out and try to play, the rest of the game right there at the goal line? That would have been a nightmare. But nope, didn't have to because officials crushed it. They also didn't make a controversy anywhere else throughout the game. I thought they managed it perfectly. I was impressed. Officials of the Super Bowl, great crew. You are better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, I have to agree. After that game, there wasn't a single call that you looked at and go, man, they screwed that one up. Like every time they showed the replay of a call that was made on the field, you're like, oh yeah, that's holding. Oh yeah, that was, pass interference.
Yeah, every single time.
Martellus Bennett didn't get his touchdown, though. I was so bummed. I wanted Martellus to get that touchdown. He had it in his arms on that one pass interference call that got him near the goal line. But the Bennett brothers, at least they both have rings now.
I was going to say, I mean, boo-hoo, he's got a ring.
Yeah. I wanted him to catch a touchdown, though, just because, one of the Bennett family's members getting a touchdown, and Martellus already talking about how Super Bowl champions get paid when they're free agents.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure he was. They have a single focus. They're a single-minded group, those Bennetts.
Yes, they are.
I'll give them credit. Keep getting them checks.
Indeed. Well, Adam, with that,
I think there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.